The broken ship, and the stranger in the wheelchair. The sky above the desert was quiet until it wasn't. A loud boom shook the ground. Dust rose in the air as a bright light streaked across the sky and crashed behind the nearby hills. Birds scattered. Silence returned. But it wasn't peaceful anymore. Jox wiped the sweat from his forehead and stepped out of his small repair shop. He looked up. Smoke curled in the distance, black against the blue sky. That wasn't a meteor, he muttered. He grabbed his tools, jumped into his old hovercart, and sped toward the crash site. The desert was harsh, full of heat and sharp rocks, but Jox had lived here all his life. He was a mechanic fixing ships for traders, miners, and sometimes smugglers who didn't ask many questions. He preferred machines over people. Machines didn't lie, but today was different. As he reached the smoking wreck, his cart slowed. The ship was small, sleek, silver, and clearly not from any local station. It had no markings, no ID beacon, no visible weapons. It looked like it had been built to vanish. Then he saw her. A figure crawled out from the wreckage. She wasn't human. Her skin was pale blue, glowing slightly under the sunlight. Long silver hair fell across her face. Her legs didn't move. She pulled herself forward with trembling arms until her hand reached a small device on her wrist. With a click, a floating chair unfolded and lifted her into place. A wheelchair, but not like anything Jox had seen. It hovered a few inches above the ground and shimmered with soft light. It wrapped around her like a throne. Jox stepped forward, unsure if she could understand him. "Are you hurt?" he asked carefully. The woman looked up. Her eyes were intelligent but full of pain. She didn't answer right away. Then, in perfect standard Galactic, she spoke. "Help me." That was all. JX hesitated, then nodded. He opened the back of his hovercart. "Let's get you out of here before someone else shows up." Back at his shop, Jox cleared a space on the floor and set the tools aside. He helped her down gently, careful not to ask too many questions. She winced once, but stayed silent. "Your ship's a mess," he said, glancing at the data feed from the wreck. "Half the systems are melted, but I can fix it. Might take some time." She nodded slowly. "I need it ready as soon as possible." "Name?" he asked, more out of habit. "Call me Rena." That's all she gave him. No planet, no family, no reason for crashing on a backwater world. Still, he didn't push. He'd seen worse: runaways, deserters, bounty targets. He didn't ask questions unless they came with extra credits. But Rena was different. Her hands were steady when she typed commands, her voice calm. She spoke 7 galactic languages when muttering to her wristpad. And when Jox checked her ship's power core, he found something that didn't belong. Military-grade shielding tech, hidden behind a layer of fake components. He didn't mention it. Not yet. Days passed. The sun rose and burned the sand each morning. At night, the stars blinked quietly above. Jox worked during the day. Rena sat in her chair, watching him. Sometimes, she helped. Her knowledge of ship systems surprised him. She wasn't just smart, she was trained, like an engineer, or something else. "Where'd you learn this stuff?" Jox asked one evening, wiping grease off his hands. She looked at him for a long moment. "I used to travel, saw many places, learned many things before." She said nothing. That night, Jox sat alone by the old transmitter tower. He looked up at the stars and sighed. Something about this whole thing felt off, but not in a dangerous way. More like something hidden. She wasn't running from war. She was running from power. The next morning, while replacing a fried circuit, he found a silver emblem hidden behind a panel. He recognized it, VLARI crest. Only one place in the galaxy used that symbol, the Valari royal house. He froze. His eyes darted toward the small building where Rena slept. What kind of person crashes on a desert moon with imperial tech, speaks like a diplomat, and hides royal crests in her ship? Just then, her voice came from the doorway. Find something. Jox turned, trying to hide his surprise. She was watching him closely, her golden eyes unreadable. No, just old junk, he said. Quickly, she didn't smile, didn't blink. Instead, she said, then let's keep working. He nodded, but something inside him had changed. Rena wasn't just a lost traveler, and Jox wasn't just fixing a ship. He was building an escape for someone who had once ruled stars. Asterisk the blueprints she shouldn't have. Jox hadn't slept much. He kept turning over the same thought in his mind, that emblem, Valari, royal crest. It wasn't just rare, it was dangerous. The Valari Empire ruled half the eastern galaxies with a grip tighter than gravity. If Rena had any connection to them, she wasn't just any runaway. She was someone important, maybe too important. But still, she sat quietly in the workshop each day, speaking little, helping when needed, and keeping her secrets close. Jox couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing next to a bomb, smiling. While the timer ticked down, he returned to her ship the next day. This time to examine the navigation system. He powered up the flight core, and the console lit up with hidden files. The files weren't locked, but they were deep, buried under fake folders. Jox wasn't trying to snoop, but they loaded automatically. What he saw made him pause. Blueprints, not just regular ship diagrams, but classified ones. Black hole designs, stealth cores, anti-detection field arrays, weapon cloaks. This was top-of-line warship tech. He backed away slowly. No civilian should have these. No diplomat either. Only someone high-ranking, someone with access. He shut it off immediately. Later, that evening, Rena rolled quietly into the shop. Her face was unreadable as always. Jox avoided her eyes. Your navigation's mostly fried, he said. Gonna take me a while to piece it back together. She nodded once. I trust you. That made his chest tighten. Why? Why did she trust him so easily? He looked up. You sure you're telling me everything I need to know? Her gaze didn't shift. Would you believe me if I did? He didn't answer. She turned away. Then just fix the ship. The following day, a sandstorm hit. Wind howled across the plains, and dust slammed against the shop's reinforced doors. Jox and Rena were stuck inside. No work, just silence. She sat across from him, sipping warm broth. He watched her carefully. How long have you been running? He asked. She looked up slowly. A long time. From who? She didn't speak. After a pause, Jox added, I saw the emblem. Rena didn't react. He continued, I know it's Valari that makes you someone important. She put the cup down. Her voice was softer now. I was important, not anymore. Then why hide it? Because power is a target, she said. Especially when you refuse to use it the way they want. That night, Jox sat by the ship alone. He replayed her words again and again. Power is a target. It made sense. He'd heard whispers across the systems. A Valari empress had gone missing a year ago. Rumors said she was overthrown by her generals for being too soft, for sparing a rebel colony when the council demanded destruction. Soft, they said. Merciful, they spat. But Jox saw her differently. She wasn't weak. She was trying to be something. More than a weapon. The storm passed by morning. Jox got back to work, welding the fractured frame and replacing the burned engine plates. Rena joined him, tightening bolts with precise hands. They didn't speak much, but something had changed. The silence was no longer cold. It was shared at midday. A red light blinked on Rena's wrist. She looked at it for only a second, but Jox saw her reaction. Her hands froze. Her breath hitched. "What is it?" he asked. "Nothing," she said too quickly. He walked over and looked. A message had appeared encrypted and in Valari script. Location identified. Confirm if Empress is alive. He stared at it. She didn't deny it anymore. "You're her," he whispered. "A real Empress." Rena didn't flinch. "I was. Not anymore. You're being hunted." She nodded. "Why come here?" "Because I needed someone who doesn't bow to crowns," she said quietly. "Someone who sees the engine, not the title." That night, Jox powered down everything in the shop. He looked up at the stars. 3 points of light moved too fast to be stars. Ships. Scouts. Bet scouts, maybe. Or were straighter fleets. They were getting closer. He walked back into the shop and looked at Rena. "We need to finish your ship," he said. "Now." Visitors in the dark. Jox didn't sleep that night. He sat by the ship, his hand gripping a small plasma tool like a weapon. He kept checking the radar panel every 10 minutes. Those 3 dots, those fast-moving ships, they weren't friendly. They were searching, and they were getting closer. Inside the shop, Rena sat quietly in her floating chair, her hands folded, eyes closed, as if preparing for something she'd seen before. Her face was calm. To calm. By morning, Jox's warning alarms buzzed softly. 3 ships had entered low orbit. 1 landed on the far side of the ridge. Not pirates, not scavengers. Their energy signatures were cloaked. Stealth-class military crafts. Jox tapped the comms system off and turned toward Rena. "They're here." She opened her eyes slowly. "I know." He raised an eyebrow. "How do you know?" she answered. "Because they always find me." Jox acted fast. He pulled open a hidden floor panel in the corner of the hangar and old smuggler's tunnel, left by a trader long ago. It was dark, dusty, and unused, but it led to a deep bunker that blocked all scans. "Get in," he said. Rena didn't argue. He helped her down the ramp. Her floating chair was light but covered in faint damage scars. Even technology had limits. Even royals could bleed. She looked at Jox as she entered the shadows. "You don't have to do this." "I know," he replied, "but I'm doing it anyway." Then he sealed the hatch. Less than an hour later, the visitors arrived. 3 figures. Tall, armored in smooth black suits. No emblems, no greetings. Their helmets hid their faces. Their boots left no sound. Their weapons glowed faintly red. Jox wiped his hands on a cloth and stepped outside to meet them, pretending to be calm. One of them spoke, voice distorted and cold. "We detected a crash. Have you seen a ship?" "Yeah," Jox lied easily. "Small courier ship went down in the dunes a week ago. Nothing inside but scrap. I stripped what I could and left the rest." "You didn't find a pilot?" "Nope," Jock shrugged. "Probably melted in the fire. That ship was cooked." The soldiers didn't move for a while. They scanned his shop, walked around the wrecked parts. One of them stopped near the fresh welding seams on Rena's ship, too fresh. He leaned in, Jocks tensed. His fingers brushed the hidden trigger on his workbench. One wrong move, and he was ready to fight. But then the soldier stood up. Keep your eyes open. If anything unusual shows up, contact us immediately. Jocks nodded. They turned and left without another word. But as their ships lifted into the sky, one of them looked back for just a second too long for it to mean nothing. When the dust settled, Jocks opened the hatch again. Rena emerged, quiet as ever. Did they find anything? She asked. No, Jocks replied. But they were close, too close. Rena looked at her ship. It's not ready. It will be, he said. But we don't have much time. She nodded. Then she added something Jocks didn't expect. They'll come back with more. That night, as they worked, Rena finally spoke more than usual. She told Jocks about the betrayal, about how her own generals had voted to remove her, about how she refused to destroy a planet of peaceful colonists, direct orders. They called me weak, she said softly. Said I had no right to rule if I couldn't carry out judgment without emotion. Jocks looked at her, puzzled. You had a choice. You chose to save lives. That's not weakness. She gave a tired smile. Tell that to the galaxy. Jocks paused. You ever think about taking back the throne? Her face changed. No, why not? I don't want a throne. I want peace. Jocks looked at the half-built ship, then back at her. Sometimes you have to fight for peace. She didn't reply, but something in her expression changed. She was remembering who she used to be, and Jocks. He was starting to believe in who she still could be. Outside, the winds picked up again. The stars above blinked, but this time, something new appeared in the sky. A new ship, bigger, heavier, royal, design. Not scouts, not hunters, something else, JAX, and Rena both stared up through the cracked ceiling window. She whispered, That's not one of them. Jocks asked, Then who is it? Rena's lips pressed tight. Someone from the past. Truth of the crownless empress. The new ship hovered silently above the desert. It didn't flash weapons. It didn't send warnings. It simply waited like a ghost from another lifetime. Jocks stared at it through the roof panel, his heart beating hard. It's watching us, he said. No, Rena replied softly. It's waiting for me. She rolled back inside, her eyes locked on nothing, lost in thought. Jocks followed her into the workshop. You know who that is? He said. It wasn't a question. Rena nodded. Then tell me. She closed her eyes. For a moment, when she opened them, her voice was quiet but steady. That ship belongs to Commander Vela. He was once my guard, my closest advisor. Jocks crossed his arms. Friend? Rena paused. Once. What happened? I gave him an order, she said slowly. He didn't follow it. She moved toward the center of the room and looked at her half-finished ship. I told him to protect the innocent, to guard the colony of Thalos. When the council demanded its destruction, he refused. Said my mercy would cost the Empire its control. Her hands clenched. He didn't argue. He just called the fleet, bombed the city, without hesitation. Jocks's voice was low. And the people, 10,000 civilians, she whispered, gone in an hour. Jocks felt his jaw tighten. He'd heard about the Thalos incident people, called it a rebel nest. But now he knew the truth. They weren't rebels. they were victims. Because one woman tried to save them and was betrayed. After that, Rena continued, the council declared me unfit to rule. Vela took my seat. I escaped with loyal guards, but they fell one by one, until only I was left. She looked down at her legs. They shot my escape pod. I barely survived. Damage to my spine, ... permanent. I've been hiding ever since. Jox stepped closer. Then why now? Why come back into the light? She met his eyes, golden and full of fire. Because I'm tired of hiding, and because you reminded me who I was. Outside, the large ship began to descend slowly, quiet as a whisper. Sand rose around its base like mist. Jox walked to the controls. They'll land in 5 minutes. Rena nodded. Let them. Are you sure? If he's here to finish the job, he won't kill me, she said calmly. He still believes I can't kill him either, can you? She didn't answer. She just looked at the ship, and the room grew cold. 5 minutes later, the hatch opened. Commander Vela stepped out. He looked almost human tall, sharp-faced, in dark silver armor that reflected the dying sun. His steps were careful, purposeful. Jox stood near the workshop entrance, his tool in hand, ready to protect. But it was Rena he looked at. He stopped a few meters away, nodded once. Empress, he said. That title was stolen, she replied. I didn't steal it, Vela said. I kept the Empire from falling into weakness. Rena tilted her head. By burning the helpless, they were enemies. They were children. The air grew thick between them. Vela took a slow step forward. You're building a ship, he said. Going somewhere. Away from the monsters who wear crowns, she said. I could kill you here, he said plainly. End the story. You had many chances, but you didn't. Velo stared at her. I respected you once. You ruled with heart, but heart makes poor leaders. Rena's voice grew stronger. Heart makes empires worth saving. For a moment, no one moved. Then Vela said something unexpected. I came to offer peace. Jox almost laughed. Rena didn't blink. Peace, she asked. A deal, he said. You leave. You vanish forever. I erase your trace. The council won't hunt you. And I keep my throne. And if I refuse? She asked. His voice turned cold. Then next time, I won't come alone. Silence again. Then Rena said, no deal. Vela's jaw tightened. Jox raised his tool slightly. You heard her. Vela looked at him for the first time. You're the mechanic. I'm the one building the future Queen's escape ship, Jox replied. Vela turned back to Rena. You'll regret this. No, she said. I regret trusting you. He stepped back, his boots sinking into the sand. Then he turned, walked to his ship, and left. But as he boarded, he said one last thing. Finish your ship, Empress. You'll need it. That night, the wind howled again. Rena sat in silence. Jox worked without stopping, tightening bolts, checking circuits. No more questions, no more hiding. Tomorrow, the galaxy would remember her name. The sun rose red over the desert. Dust floated in the air like old memories. Jox tightened the last panel on Rena's ship. The engine purred softly steady, stable. Everything was ready, but his hands didn't stop shaking. Rena sat near the doorway, her eyes fixed on the sky. Her chair hovered just a few inches above the ground, silent like always. But her face, it had changed. She didn't look like a broken fugitive anymore. She looked like a ruler, A real one. Jox walked over and handed her a small drive chip. Navigation's loaded. I gave you 3 blind jumps and a backup destination in the Ira Belt. Old mining world. No one patrols there anymore. She took the chip and nodded. Double quote, thank you. He scratched his neck. You sure you want to go alone? I don't want anyone else getting hurt because of me. You're not just anyone, Rena smiled faintly. Neither are you. Suddenly, a sharp alarm buzzed in the shop. Jax rushed to the screen. His heart dropped. Multiple ships, 6, all bearing Valari Command signatures. They're here, he said. Rena didn't flinch. How long until they reach us? 10 minutes. Maybe less. He looked at her. She looked at her ship. Then, without a word, she rolled forward and entered the cockpit. The ramp closed behind her like a final breath. Jox activated the launch gate just as the first flash of enemy ships appeared in the sky. He heard the rumble before he saw them, sleek, black, and angry. Plasma cannons charged. Scanners wide open. Jox grabbed his remote detonator. He had set up decoy beacons days ago buried in the sand, disguised as heat signals. He pressed the button. 3 explosions fired off to the east, drawing the ships away for just a moment. It was enough. Rena's ship powered up, engines glowing deep blue. It lifted from the ground like a rising hope, and then it stopped. She didn't leave. Not yet. The cockpit screen blinked once, then displayed something Jox didn't expect. A message recorded, meant only for him. Her voice filled the shop through the speaker. Jox, I never expected to find kindness in a place like this. You didn't ask for the truth. You didn't demand answers. You just helped, because that's who you are. I'm not the Empress anymore. Maybe I never truly was. But today, because of you, I remember who I wanted to be. I don't know what will happen next. But if I live, if I rise again, you'll be part of that story, always. Goodbye, mechanic of the stars. The message ended. The engines screamed louder. The ship broke through the rising smoke and soared toward the sky. Jax stepped outside and watched it climb, glowing against the morning light. 1 ship, 1 woman, and a future the galaxy wasn't ready for. Just then, a plasma beam struck the workshop. Jax ducked behind the outer wall as one of the enemy ships returned, firing blindly. The beacon trick had worn off, but he didn't run. Instead, he activated the last signal flare and threw it into the air. Bright red, a warning dot to anyone watching from above. It meant escape in progress. Block, pursuit. He didn't know if anyone loyal to Rena was still out there, but just maybe, someone still believed. Another shot hit the ground nearby. Jax looked up and smiled. Through the dust, Rena's ship vanished into the clouds. No trace, no sound, gone. The enemy ships circled a few more times, then pulled back, confused, searching. But she was already far from their reach. They had lost her again, and this time, for good hours past. The sky cleared. Jax stood in the ruins of his shop, soot on his face, burns on his arms, but a fire still in his chest. He walked back inside. On his workbench, something had been left behind. A black box, small, unmarked. He opened it. Inside was the Valari royal crest, but redesigned. The old sharp edges were softened. A new symbol was carved below. A ship rising through fire, and a small silver tag with 1 sentence. For the man who built my freedom. Jox stared at it for a long time. Then he smiled, not because he had helped an empress, but because he had reminded her how to be one.